How's it going, guys? Andrew here with Justified EDC, and today I have 4 quick fixed blade reviews. I did another one of these a while back, and if you're not familiar with that video, this is probably a series I'm going to start bringing back just kind of on an as-needed basis. And the point of it is kind of just to get some reviews out, just quick snapshot reviews at some fixed blades, and I might do it for folders down the road if I get enough on hand for this kind of thing. But the point of it is kind of give you just like a short snapshot review of some fixed blades that either aren't really my thing or are just kind of something that I don't have a lot of use for to be able to do a lot of testing, or just ones that I don't carry enough to feel good about doing a full review. You guys see my other fixed blade reviews, you know that I do a lot of testing on my previous to my reviews to give you guys good use results to see how these knives are actually going to perform. So this is for, the series is kind of for knives that I think are well made and are good knives, maybe just aren't for me or for what I carry fixed blades for. So that disclaimer out there, this doesn't mean that I don't like any of these. Like in terms of how they're manufactured and put together, they just might not be kind of my thing for my daily use. So that's a disclaimer out there. But before we get into these, let me show you another maker of fixed blades, the sponsor of the channel, Auxiliary Manufacturing. Mike is a really awesome guy doing some custom fixed blades made in the USA, similar to this Sumi Mile here. This is one of his. This actually just appeared on Ed Calderon's page on Instagram, so if you know anything about how Ed posting fixed blades goes, these might start selling out really quick soon, so you might want to go grab one of these while you can. But yeah, Mike has been sponsoring the channel, helping me pick up some gear to make the videos better and sending me things to review, so big thank you to him. I will leave links to his page down in the description, and as always, thank you to him for sponsoring the channel. So with that out of the way, let's hop right into these. So let's see, which one should I start with? I think I'm going to start with this one over here first. We're just going to go through these one by one. Again, these aren't full reviews, so I'm not going to go through a whole lot of, I'll kind of give you the specs and kind of my thoughts and everything like that, but we're not going to get too in-depth on either one of these. So this right here is the Toor Knives Jank Shank, which is kind of a funny name, but this is not my cup of tea. Pretty much in any way. But before I get into that, I will give you some specs here. So lining this up here, you have about a 3-inch blade. You got about just over 2.5 inches of cutting length, an overall length of 7 inches, a grip area of about 4 inches if you include that ring. Right here, I'll show you a close-up here. You have CPM 154 on the blade steel G10 handles that are nicely milled. Everything's put together very well. You have 1/4-inch blade stock, which is crazy thick, a high flat grind coming down to a very thick, steep edge, nice pointy tip, still thick though, and then you have a ring on the finger ring here on the back for either grip like that. Comes with a Kydex sheath, nice and minimal, just like that. So getting into this here, I'll show you some size comparisons to all of these at the end, but getting into this here, the reason this, and thank you to one of my friends on Instagram and viewers of the channel, he sent me this to check out. This is not mine, this will be going back to him when I'm done with it. But so thank you to him for sending this over. This just really isn't my kind of knife. One, I don't really like finger rings on knives. There's a whole lot of reasons for that. But the main one being rings mainly used for knives for self-defense purposes. And in my philosophy, rings are just a bad idea for that kind of thing. Knives you see used in movies and video games and stuff like that, you kind of just stab and come right back out. There's not really a whole lot of risk of getting that knife stuck inside. That's not really how knives perform on organic mediums in real life. They often get lodged in bone, or things get stuck up inside on tendons and stuff, and you have a hard time retracting that blade. And having a ring on there that tethers your knife to your hand to that knife can be a bad day if what you're stabbing into decides to move away from you or twist. You can get your finger broken, you can get the skin on your finger degloved. It's also harder to switch hands, which is a big thing in knife self-defense. You want to be able to move the knife between hands and switch grips, and that kind of hinders that. So I know there are a lot of people out there that do appreciate rings, and if you're one of those people that does and has practiced that kind of knife fighting, that's fine. I'm not saying you're wrong. Just in my personal opinion and experience, not a big fan of ring knives. So I'm not going to knock it on that because that's personal preference. But it is just crazy stupid thick. A 1/4 inch blade stock is kind of ridiculous for most knives, especially at this size. Like overall, you're looking at a 7-inch knife. And from what I can tell, this is Toor Knives is kind of a tactical knife company. They're probably marketing this to be tucked on a duty belt or in a plate carrier. And then to kind of be a quick grab and stab, kind of create distance kind of knife. That blade stock makes it extremely heavy for the size. So I'll bring up my scale here. So with the sheath, the entire package here is 5 ounces. So to give you a comparison here, let's find a knife that's pretty similar in size. Let's see, what do we got here that's similar in overall length? So in overall size here, the BW Knives Erebus is coming out at 3.4 ounces, whereas this is coming in at 5 ounces. So this is a thick, heavy knife for the size. And another thing I doesn't quite make a whole lot of sense to me is the steel choice on here. CPM 154 is a good steel. For those of you who aren't familiar, it is the Crucible's powder metallurgy version of 154 CM. So an upgrade to something like 154 CM, but not the toughest steel in the world. I mean, it's better than stuff like your 20 CVs, M390s, that kind of, like really high edge retention stainless steels. It's tougher than those, but up against a lot of carbon steels and stuff like that, or even stainless steels like Nitro V or 14C28N. This is not the toughest steel in the world. So I don't know if they just happened to pick that for price reasons or availability reasons, or if they picked this and then made the blade stock super thick to kind of give it extra toughness. But I would say it's kind of an odd choice for this. I would, if they wanted to keep it a stainless, they could go with something like a Nitro V or a 14C28N. If they really wanted to up it, they could do some kind of carbon steel that's much tougher. They would just have to put a coating on it. But I don't know. It just seems like an odd choice. The thickness, it doesn't need to be this thick with a better steel choice. And honestly, with this steel, you could probably drop this down to an 1/8 inch and it would be fine. But yeah, and the reason I didn't even really carry this at all is because the edge it's so thick behind the edge. This is basically a sharpened pry bar. You're not going to be able to do any utility cutting, and this isn't going to slash very well. Any kind of slash cuts, you're probably just going to be dragging that tip, which you're not going to get as much depth of cut as you otherwise would. And it's also just heavy, so this is not exactly a quick knife either. So that all being said, it's very well made. Everything is nicely fit and finished. The scales are very nice. The grinds are nice. It's all very consistent. The kydex is very well done. So this is a well-made knife, and if this is something you're looking for in this kind of form factor, go for it. But personally, I think there are better options out there. And this is not a knock on Toor in any way. As a lot of you know, I really enjoy the Toor Knives Merchant 2.0. This is one of my favorite frame lock folders. I really enjoy this knife, but the first version of the Merchant was crazy overbuilt and thick, and that was a detriment that people a lot complained about. They ended up revamping it to be a much thinner knife. So this is the first Toor fixed blade I've experienced, but I'm wondering if this is something that, with some continued feedback of some people who actually know stuff about knives and not just Instagram shooters that promote any knife that they're sent. If they get some honest feedback, maybe they'll end up dropping the stock thickness down on some of these, because it's just not necessary, and maybe picking some better steel choices. So that is the Toor Knives Jank Shank. Cool knife, not really my thing. I think there could be some improvements made. Moving on, let's do something completely different. This is the GEC H10 Hunter. So there's an H40 Hunter that is the larger version of this, but this is the small skinning knife variant of this knife. Leather sheath, we'll get into that later, but so let's get you some specs here. So you're looking about 3.5 inches blade. Your actual cutting edge is just over 3 inches. Overall length of about 7 inches, and then your handle length is let's see, 1, 2, 3, just under 3.5 inches. So a very small handle. I can get a 4-finger grip on here. I have medium-sized hands. I wear medium gloves. I can just barely get 4 fingers on there if I kind of just monkey fist this. If I'm kind of using this in pinch grips or anything like that, my pinky kind of comes off the end. So it's a very small knife. Made by Great Eastern Cutlery, so they're using 1095 steel, carbon steel. They use that across the board pretty much on all of their knives, as much as I'm aware. Now this one I have used quite a bit, so it's taking a really cool patina, which is awesome. And this is the woodland muslin handle variant, so that is what that handle material is. Cool little acorn shield, pin construction, very traditional kind of hunting skinning knife. Now, I have not used this as a hunting skinning knife. I mostly use this in the kitchen as a kind of a second paring knife, and for that it works very well. You have very thin blade stock. This is coming in under an 1/8 inch. Again, these are pretty popular knives, so if you want the kind of the full spec list, you can go check out GEC's page or something like that. I don't know if these are in current production. They are fairly easy to find on the secondary market. You don't see them brand new a whole lot. I got this on the secondary market from someone on Instagram. You can find them on eBay for a decent price. Unlike a lot of Great Eastern Cutlery knives, these aren't ones that are being crazy overcharged for, so that's pretty cool. High flat grind on this. You got a swedge up top. This comes down to a nice thin edge. So for a kind of EDC, food prep, skinning knife, all that kind of, I think this can do a lot of different things very well because of that thin, flat grind. You got enough belly and enough flat that you can do most tasks. Choking up on here for kind of your skinning tasks works well. The guard there, I'm not a big fan of guards like this. If you're using it in this kind of grip like that, it does keep your fingers from slipping up, but in any kind of use that I'd be using it for like hunting or anything like that, I'd probably be choked up on it like this anyways, or even back like this right above the guard. I might eventually kind of trim that guard down to be a little bit smaller, but it is what it is, and I think it works well. If you have bigger hands though, this is definitely not for you. You might want to look at the H40, which is the bigger version of this. Now this does come with a nice leather sheath, nicely made. It did have a belt loop that rode about that high, just kind of your traditional vertical belt carry sheath. I never carry fixed blades like that, so I just cut that right off. I don't carry this a whole ton, like actually on me. I'm mostly using this around my house for like food prep and stuff like that, but this kind of just works as a pocket slip where you can just slip it right down in your pocket, and it's nice and small, so it's not a hindrance to carry. It's also very lightweight. Bring the scale back out here. So again, we'll do with the sheath because that's going to be your whole carry system. Coming at 3.6 ounces with the leather sheath. Without the sheath, you're looking at 2.4 ounces. So a very lightweight, nimble kind of knife for skinning or food prep or anything like that. Just a great little knife. I really enjoy how the 1095 patinas. 1095 is a very traditional steel that if you keep up with it, it's very easy to maintain. It sharpens up very, very well. It holds an edge for a decent amount of time. Now compared to your modern super steels, obviously it won't, but compared to a lot of things like your 440Cs and stuff like that, these kind of carbon steels actually perform very well. You can get really nice edges on them. They strop back very nicely. They're extremely easy to sharpen. I'm a big fan of these. So that is the GEC H10 Hunter. Moving on, we will kind of stick in the kind of traditional vein here real quick. This is a knife, I'll actually move my scale out of here real quick. This is a knife made by Corey Bowman of Bowman Blade Works. This was sent to me, which I should have specified. I bought this for myself. This was not sent to me or anything. This one was sent to me by the maker. I really appreciate him sending this over. You might have seen the micro Clovis, which is that small, like arrowhead shaped, Clovis shaped, obviously, knife that I had previously. That was also from him. And then I just got this model over. So this is in 8670 steel, which we'll talk about here in a second. It did come, I added this kind of camo form tape, but it just come with this little leather wrap here to kind of give you an index point. This really cool stone pattern on the blade. He does hand forge his knives. So this is not a stock removal knife, this is a forged knife, which makes sense for the steel. 8670, extremely good for forging, also works really well for grinding and stuff like that. One of the toughest steels you can come across. 8670 is an extremely tough steel. That does come at the cost of edge retention, but again, this is not a knife that you're going to be putting a whole lot of cutting behind. More of a lot of his knives are more geared to the outdoors bushcraft kind of community, as you can kind of see with the sheath and the kind of the setup. This is almost like a little bird and trout knife, or just kind of a backup like whittler or something like that. So for that, the steel works very well. The reason I had this camo form on here is the back pommel was just a little bit pointy for me. For the size of this knife, a lot of the grips that I want to use it in are kind of these like pinch grips, which puts the pommel of the knife back into the palm of your hand. And for that, it was just a little bit pointy, kind of dug into my hand a little bit, but just a little bit of camo, just a little bit of foam tape on there, or fabric tape on there, that covered that right up. He did offer for me to send this back into him and him kind of reprofile the back of the knife there, just because of my personal preference. Again, nothing wrong with that if you prefer that kind of handle shape, but I might do that at some point, but for now, that works really well. Nice and thin stock, flat ground, comes down to a decently thin edge, nice and sharp bevel. I took this camping with me the other week. Just kind of use this as a neck knife. So this did come with, I believe it came with like a leather necklace to wear it. I just prefer these ball chains. They're lighter. If they get caught on something, they break off, so you're not going to strangle yourself with the sheath. The sheath, though, speaking of which, very nicely done leather. He does a lot of really cool leather work for his sheaths. He started doing some pocket sheaths recently with the discrete carry concepts clips, which I think is super sick. Definitely want to pick up one of those. But very nicely done stitching, copper rivets, nice thick leather. The fit of the sheath is very nice. Fits in very nicely, even with that tape that I put on there. Does not shake out at all. Very nice retention. And this kind of sits in your kind of traditional neck knife orientation, where it's sticking with the blade up, so you kind of just pull up. You don't have to worry about hanging it upside down and your knife coming out. But very cool little knife. I don't have a ton of use behind it. This was just sitting at my desk for a while, and I was kind of using it to like cut some paracord or some tape or whatever. It kind of just sat on my desk here off to the side, and I kind of used it as my like little general utility knife. But I did take it camping the other week, did a little bit of whittling with it, used it for some just general camp uses, and it did really, really well. So definitely check out Bowman knives. Really cool stuff. He has a couple other models I really want to check out here in the future. He has a really cool Barlow-esque kind of knife, where he's doing these like fixed blade, they're like traditional slip joint patterns made into fixed blades. He has a really cool like pocket bowie he just came out with, so definitely go check him out. Again, I will leave links to all of these in the description. Go check out his page. Last one here. Now, this one's been a long time coming, and those of you who watch the channel consistently have seen this knife before. Again, I say long time coming, so I apologize to Aaron. This is the Gypsy EDC XL Tego. I always want to call it the Tego, but it is the Tego, is the shortened version of one of his dog's names, I believe. But this is a very, very cool knife. I did a video on this and two other sizes of Tego a while back, where I had two smaller variants, and there was an in-between one that I was missing. But this is the XL. So getting into the specs here, you have about just under a 4.5 inch blade. Your cutting edge is right at 4 inches. Your handle length here is right at 4 inches. Grip area might be a hair shorter than that, but kind of one of those profiles of the big blade with a shorter handle. This is admittedly not the kind of EDC knife I normally carry. I usually prefer like a full-size handle with a bit of a shorter blade, but this is one that kind of changed my mind on carrying a knife with a longer blade, a fixed blade with a longer blade for EDC. Before I get into that, again, my ADHD is kind of running crazy here, but the rest of the specs here: 1/8 inch blade stock, 80 CRV2 steel, good tough stuff for kind of a general purpose knife. Full flat ground, nice and sharp secondary edge bevel. These do come in all kinds of different grinds and blade lengths and handle lengths and handle scales or wraps. This one happens to be a Japanese style cord wrap, but he does this with scales as well. So pretty much if you like the overall profile of this knife and want it in a different size or blade shape or handle shape or grind or anything like that, definitely go check it out. Then it also has this deep carry Kydex sheath with his logo on the back, which I think looks sick. Black front, discrete carry concepts clip, which is the best in the game in my opinion. I held on to this one a little bit longer than the other two, just because this one kind of intrigued me. I thought the smaller ones would be more my speed, but I actually felt myself gravitating to this one. This is a little bit long to be down in the pocket. I would more consider this kind of like a deep carry inside the waistband. But my current jeans, and I can't really show you because I'm wearing them, I can actually fit this in my pocket. It's just a lot. If I was gonna have one of these made for me, I'd probably have it made with a standard height ambi sheath that went only about up to there, so I could wear it inside the waistband and get a full grip on the knife, just because I'm not gonna really carry something this large in my pocket. But man, this thing performs so well. It's light. Again, I'm gonna pull the scale out here. So without the sheath, 3.6 inches for that long knife, which again, going back to the Toor, 4.3, and you can see the size difference between those two. This knife, only 3.5. So very light for its size. With the sheath, we're looking at 5.5. So for the size of this knife, a very lightweight package, very nimble. The grips that you can do with this, although it's not a completely neutral handle, this feels good enough to do multiple grips in, which I appreciate. This grind for me in particular, this full flat grind, is the one that performs best for me. I know a lot of people like the convex grinds and the Scandi grinds for more bushcraft kind of stuff. I don't do a whole lot of that on a regular basis. So for me, something with a more utilitarian grind works better for me, and you can still obviously do all of your self-defense type tasks with this. Now, I addressed this in the other video. I'm not going to go over it again in detail. Yes, this looks a lot similar to a Tracker Blood Shark. You can have your own opinions about that. I'm not going to get into that in this video. I went more in depth with that on the other one where I went over multiple of these models. So if you're interested, I'll leave a link to that in the description, but just had to say that so I don't get a bunch of comments about it. But yeah, this knife actually kind of changed my mind of carrying a larger, like over 3-inch blade for EDC. I usually try to keep the fixed blades that I carry like 3 inches or under, just because for ease of use in the pocket, and I like having kind of a smaller blade that I can manipulate a little bit easier with a full-size handle. But this, you do get the merits of having a longer blade. Obviously, you have more reach, you have more edge, so it doesn't dull as quickly if you use it in multiple spots. All that kind of stuff. So definitely going to be experimenting with carrying some larger fixed blade, especially coming into the fall and winter here where I have more clothing on. I can carry a larger fixed blade inside the waistband along with my gun. So yeah, really interesting knife. I really appreciate Aaron sending this over. This will be going back to him shortly after I finish this video, but again, just had to put the disclaimer out there that this was sent to me by the maker. So there you go, guys. Those are 4 quick fixed blade reviews. Before I wrap this up, I will get you some size comparisons on these. So I'm going to pull all of these out here. Actually, should I pull all of these out here, or should I do these one at a time? We're going to start and kind of just put some size comparisons in the middle here. Again, these aren't full reviews. These are just kind of quick overviews. So we're just going to pull some out, put them in the middle here, kind of give you a general perspective on how big these are compared to some other things in my collection. So let's see. Let's start out. Here is the BW Knives Erebus. This is the full-size Erebus. For sake of keeping it consistent, here is the Erebus Short, the smaller version of the Erebus. Here is the Sosby Blades Chicago Cub. So if you're familiar with the Cub, just a shorter blade, same handle. Here is the Offensive Industries Fenrir M. So same normal size blade as the Fenrir with a longer handle. Let's see, what else can we do? Recently picked up, here is the Knives by Nuge Wicket. the smaller version. He has the Wicked XL as well now. And let's pull out some other classics. Since we have a bigger knife on the table, let's pull out a classic, larger fixed blade. Here is the Buck 119, classic hunting knife right there. Let's see, what else can we do that people will be familiar with. Here is the SE Azula, pretty standard outdoorsy kind of bushcrafty fixed blade. Everyone's pretty familiar with those. And just for the hell of it, let's pull some folders out here. So here is a standard size. This is a K-bar, but if you're familiar with just trappers in general, full-size trappers like Case and a bunch of other brands, this is a standard size trapper. You can see that there. And let's do some modern folders that people might be familiar with. Here is the Spyderco Para 3. Here is a Emerson Elvia. And let's see here. This is pretty popular recently. Here is a Hogue Deca, the Warncliffe version with those dual grinds. So there you go, guys. There's some size comparisons. I hope you guys like this style of video, just to kind of get more knives out there for you. Again, these kind of videos are for ones where I don't want to go fully in depth on each of these. So if you're really interested in any of these, obviously these two I'm going to be sending back soon, but these two will be sticking around. So if you want more info on any of these, feel free to let me know. But thank you guys, as always, for watching. I will leave links to everything down in the description. As always, I will see you guys in the next video.